Hey guys, what's up? Today is Wednesday, June 17th. I'm in Shenzhen right now in southern China in Guangdong, and it's pretty warm here. I'm working here, and it's really nice to be here. You can see by my tan, like only like 2 days I work inside and went outside a little bit. Still got the tan. But anyways, I've been meaning to make this video for the longest time, but now I want to get this out of my chest. It's been such a long time. So I stumbled upon a really interesting video from 2009 or 2010, I believe, and that's 10 years ago. So basically, this guy predicted pretty much what we have faced during the past 6 months in this pandemic. What happened to everything? What happened to the past 6 months? He kind of predicted, that about this virus and stuff. So let me just brief you on this a little about this video. So basically, he narrates about a ex-military guy, a retired military personnel. He went to a routine meeting with senior Masons and British politicians, and in this meeting, he was actually surprised that they were talking about this stuff. They were talking. Let me quote from the video a little bit. So they will release a flu-like virus that targets the Chinese people, and it is designed to spread like wildfire, and that knocks out a large population of Chinese people. Now. And then it spreads around the world, which pretty much what we have seen in the past, And then he said like whether it was intentional from Chinese as a retaliation, we don't know, or maybe it's just simply gotten out of control because they couldn't contain it. So let's roll this video and see.
And then the next thing that happens in this chess game that's being played is that biological weapons are released on China. He heard this being discussed in this meeting. They will release a flu-like virus that will be genetically targeted against the Chinese population. It's racially targeted against the Chinese people. It's designed to spread like wildfire and to knock out a large number of the Chinese people. And these people in this meeting were laughing about this. They said, China will catch a cold. Those were their words. China will catch a cold. And they were laughing about the fact that these biological weapons will wreak havoc among the Chinese population. And after that, then what effectively will be a kind of plague will actually spread right across the world to the West as well. And our source was not clear whether this was a Chinese retaliation or whether the thing would just spread out of control in the way that it would be very understandable if it did, whether it's racially targeted or not. These things actually mutate. So now you've got a situation where there's been a limited nuclear war in the Middle East. There's a pandemic that really is sweeping across the world and really is killing people very visibly. And you've got this totalitarian military lockdown in all the governments in the Western world because everyone's going to be in panic about all of this. And then, he said, then the real war starts. Something that would be justifiably called the Third World War with a much more major nuclear exchange.
Now, you've seen the video. It's pretty accurate, and but I wouldn't be surprised that they have done this already 10 years or have attempted this in the past 10 years. So any chance they can do anything to contain China, they will do. These Anglos, because they want to. They're kind of afraid of China's rise and stuff. And so they want to contain China in whatever way and whatever it takes to contain China. Now, he also mentioned that Hitler would have been really proud about these guys' plan, to contain China or take over the world. And now, in order to understand what he meant, we need to, because he said they had a name for this mission. It's called the Anglo-Saxon Mission. So in order to understand what he meant by Hitler would have been really proud of these guys, we need to understand and dissect the word Anglo-Saxon, what it means or where it comes from. So let me try to explain to you what Anglo means. So that's really weird, right? You learn Anglo history from a Chinese guy. Very strange. But the only reason why I know a little bit about the history of Anglos is because it's a German word. So I grew up in Germany, so that's how I know it. So Anglo, where does it come from? So Anglo, actually the original word, it's actually Angeln. Angeln means fishing. So Angeln used to be a fishing village in the northern part of Germany, which is today the city is called Kiel, around that area, and it's in the state of Schleswig-Holstein, which is bordering Denmark. So you get the rough idea where it's located. So this fishing village, people will call it's called Angeln because most of people were fishing people. So apparently they name it after people's profession. So the village is called Angeln, so Anglo. So 1500 years ago, so in the 5th century basically, these people migrated to the island, which is today's England basically. So they probably named after these people too. So the England means basically the land of the Anglos, or in French, Angleterre, the land of the Anglos. So yeah, here you get to know the name where it comes from. But today, most people probably don't know that it's referring to like a German tribe, because a lot of people, when they hear the word Anglo, they always, or almost certainly, refer it to like English-speaking people. English, yeah, same thing. English, the language of the Anglos. Refer to English language like the British island, England. So English-speaking is the Five Eyes, the England, Canada, US, New Zealand, and Australia. So these are the Five Eyes English-speaking Anglo people. Now you kind of know why he said like Hitler would have been very proud of these guys, the Anglos, because they're actually descended from German tribes, so descended from Germans. So whether like he meant by that, I don't think so. But they're sort of related. But then they were fighting against each other in the Second World War. Hitler against the Anglos, basically the British and the Americans. But for some reason, at this war, they never really credit like the Russians, where they actually took like a huge part in defeating Nazi Hitler's army, basically in the eastern part. So I guess the victor writes the history. The Americans wrote the history, so they credit everything to themselves. And the second word is Saxon. Now, I have a certain affinity to Saxon because I grew up in Lower Saxony, Niedersachsen. That's where my childhood, I grew up there. That's how I know it. So Saxony is the northwestern part of Germany. I grew up in the Lower Saxony, the Niedersachsen. It's called Niedersachsen. And Nieder means basically low, like where the name, like the Netherlands and Dutch is Nederlander, that means lowland. So now you know where it comes from, Netherlands. So in French is Pays-Bas, means also lowland. So it's that area where I used to grow up next to the Dutch border is barely above sea level. So now you know where Anglo-Saxon come from. So these people, the Anglos and the Saxons migrated like 1500 years ago to the island, and then which yeah, now still today they call these people Anglo-Saxon. But again, like these people, like a lot of people probably don't know they came from Germany, and then yeah, that's a little history about the Anglo-Saxons. So when Columbus 500 years ago in 1492 conquered, I wouldn't say they discovered America because it was already like inhabited by native people. So don't say the word discovered. Columbus discovered. He conquered America 500 years ago, and that's when sort of like the European empire started, you know, like in a broader terms, you know. That's when they actually took over or conquered pretty much like 80% of the world. South America, like the entire Americas, Africa, Australia, New Zealand. So, you know, a lot of Southeast Asian countries that were colonized basically. Yeah, they have attempted to colonize China 200 years ago, and which was partially succeeded by taking Macau and Hong Kong by force during the Opium War. And during that time already, like 200 years ago, they had always trying to contain China, you know, make China weak. Yeah, during the Qing Dynasty, basically, yeah, that was the time when China got humiliated for almost like 2 centuries, you know. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that they have, you know, kept going to contain China, do whatever it takes. And now that China has risen like even more stronger economically and militarily, so the Anglosphere, the Five Eye, is getting really anxious, like scared of the rise of China. So now I wouldn't be surprised that they had this plan 10 years or 15 years ago to release a virus, which. So now that you know a little bit of history about, you know, what happened 500 years ago, like the expansion of the European Empire. Okay, now what was the message of the video that what was the ultimate goal, basically the ultimate goal or mission of this Anglo-Saxon? Basically now with the rise of China, they fear that their hegemony is at stake, basically, because they have been dominating the world for the past 500 years, militarily, economically, politically, culturally, you name it. They're not gonna let it go, you know, and then, you know, lose it against somebody else, you know. Within, like, they build up such a big empire within like the 200 years. So if China comes along, yeah, they want to make sure to get them out of the way with whatever methods they have, you know, whether it's like releasing a flu, whatever by war, whatever, you know, to whatever excuse they can, you know, initiate a war against this country and trying to fight them off, you know. And yeah, currently the biggest competitor are the Chinese, and then they're trying to, you know, to contain China, whatever it takes, you know, to keep them in this. Not keep them out of the race, you know. And if it comes to a whatever catastrophe at the end, they want to make sure that they can rebuild the world, but only the Anglos can rebuild the world. The world, not the Chinese, not the Africans, not the Russians, not the Middle Easterners, not the South Americans. So only the Anglos can rebuild the wall. So if they can keep the Chinese out of the game, whatever methods they use, because they believe that the Chinese are the sole competitors that can, if there is a catastrophe, a nuclear war, that they would have to fight with the Chinese again if there's a big war. But to make sure that they are the sole hegemony still after a major catastrophe, they still want to remain the dominant force. So that's the main idea this guy has. I mean, any dominant force right now, they, of course, their goal is to remain the hegemony, well, in Western terms. But in Chinese terms, it's very different because Western people think like Chinese people act the same way, like wants to become a superpower and be a hegemony and stuff. No, Chinese people are different. They have their own big country, they need to take care. They're not gonna go out and then fight other countries and stuff. If they're prosper, they're trying to make business with other people. If you're willing to do business, that's fine. If not, they're not gonna force you to do anything. But the mentality of Western is always like they think in their terms, what a dominant force looks like. It's always like a superpower as a hegemony. So there's not like a second superpower that can coexist. So yeah, that's the thing that, if China rises, it has to be the same as the American superpower. No, they have their own culture, they're not gonna, which they were very dominant during the Ming Dynasty, they didn't, the Zheng He, the eunuchs, he went out, to explore, different cultures and stuff, and they were trading. He went to Africa and stuff, to Malaysia, all this like India and stuff. They were trading. This guy was trading. He brought back like a huge, like exotic animals and stuff. But they never had this thought in mind to conquer like another culture. Basically, they were conquering within their own territories, within the same kind of mainland. But they didn't have this idea to conquer other nations like, intercontinent, overseas, not overseas, like in other countries or continents. They never had that in mind. So they were just trading, and then they came back, and then, yeah, it's good for two nations, but it's very different. Western powers, they come and then want to just take over, just like they did in South America and America. They took over the natives, and they were there to stay, not trading and then returning to their home ancestral country. So they were staying there and then just took over the place. In America, which like the Five Eyes Nation is basically stolen land, Canada, the entire America it's basically stolen land, kind of like by Europeans. Australia is for sure, New Zealand, So they have attempted Africa, but then kind of gave up, and then they have attempted to take over Asia and stuff. So their mindset is like very different from the Asians in general, or Chinese. Alright guys, that's it. That video was a little bit longer, but I'm trying to explain, a little bit about the history of Anglo-Saxon, and also like I was really surprised like when I saw the video like that was released 10 years ago, that wow, they have actually kind of predicted like the current pandemic. We don't know what exactly happened. Maybe it was just conventional, like a coronavirus that was just from the nature, but then it may be released by the Anglos to knock out the Chinese population in their agenda. So we don't know. So anyways, see you guys next time.